Hello students. Students, this is your English period and today we are starting chapter number 8, Silk Road, written by Nick Middleton. In this chapter, the author has described only a small part of his journey from Ravu to Mount Kailash to complete the Kora. Kora means pilgrimage on foot. And for his journey, he had hired Zayton's car and also he took Daniel along to escort him to Dachan. So, students, this is a brief introduction to the chapter. So, now let's read the chapter in detail. A flawless half moon floated in a perfect blue sky on the morning we said our goodbyes. On the day the author started his journey, it was early morning and he saw that half moon was still moving slowly and slowly in the perfect blue sky. Extended banks of clouds like long French loaves means bread, glowed pink as the sun emerged means came out, to splash the distant mountain tops with a rose tinted blush. And then he said that the banks of the clouds, the sides of the clouds, were looking just like French breads, and they were glowing in the pink color as the sun came out to spread the rays, sun rays at the distant mountain tops, and mountain tops were also blushing and they were looking just like rose color. Now that we were leaving Ravu, Lamo said she wanted to give me a farewell present. And now the author and his companions, Daniel and Zayton his taxi driver, and Daniel his friend with him, who was there to escort him, and they were leaving Ravu, and Lama wanted to give him a farewell present. One evening, I had told her through Daniel that I was heading towards Mount Kailash to complete the Kora, and she had said that I ought to get some warmer clothes. As one evening, the author had told her through Daniel that he was going to Mount Kailash, he was moving towards the Mount Kailash as he wanted to complete the Kora, and then she had said that he must keep with him some warmer clothes. After ducking back means moving back very quickly, going inside and then coming out very quickly. Ducking back into her tent, she emerged carrying one of the long sleeved sheepskin coats that all the men wore. And then she entered into her tent, and then at once she came out. And then when she came out, she was carrying with her long sleeved sheepskin coats. That was the dress for the men. Zayton sized me up as we clambered into his car. Clambered means to climb very awkwardly. Zayton sized me up. Zayton looked at the author very carefully, very attentively, as he was climbing inside the car. Ah, yes, he declared, Drogba, sir. Drogba means, in Tibet it is said Drogba means shepherd. Then Zayton told him as Drogba means he was looking just like a shepherd. He would look like a shepherd when he would wear this long sleeved sheepskin coats. We took a shortcut to get off the Shangtan. Then they took a shortcut to get off the Shangtan. Zayton knew a route that would take us southwest, almost directly towards Mount Kailash. As Zayton knew the route through the shortcut, and then they moved towards the southwest and then directly towards the Mount Kailash. It involved crossing several fairly high mountain passes, and then they passed high mountains. He said, but no problem, sir, he assured us. If there is no snow, what was the likelihood of that? I asked, not knowing, sir, until we get there. Likelihood means possibility. Now they were crossing very high mountains, but Zayton assured them that there would be no problem if there would be no snow. Then the author asked me what is the possibility, whether there would be snow or not. Then Zayton assured them that they would come to know that if there is snow or not when they would reach there. Now he means to say here that until they reach to their destination, he would not say that where there would be snow or not. And also, he said that if there would be no snow, there would be no problem to them while driving the car. From gently rolling hills of Rabu, the shortcut took us across vast open plains with nothing in them except a few gazelles. Gazelles means small, beautiful antelopes that would look up from nibbling the arid pastures and frown before bounding away into the void. Nibbling means to biting something, and void means empty place. Now, after crossing the rolling hills of Rabu, they took the shortcut. That the shortcut took them across the plains area. Now they were moving towards the plain areas, and then they saw nothing, but they saw few gazelles who were eating the arid pastures, who were grazing the fields, and also they were looking at them, but they were looking at them in anger, and then they moved towards the empty areas. Further on, where the plains became more stony than grassy, a great herd of wild ass came into view. Now, as they were moving ahead, now they found that the plains became more stony. There were gravels on their path. Now it was not more grassy. And then they found a great herd, a great group of wild ass. Zayden told us we were approaching them long before they appeared. Kyang, he said, pointing towards a far off pall of dust. Then he pointed towards a pile of dust, a heap of dust, and then he told this heap of dust as Kyang in his local language. When we drew near, I could see the herd galloping en masse, wheeling and turning in tight formation as if they were practicing maneuvers. Maneuvers means skillful movements on some predetermined course. And when they went near that group of wild ass, they saw that the group was galloping en masse. They were running in groups, they were wheeling, they were turning in tight formation as they were practicing. They were making the skillful movements on some predetermined course. Plumes of dust billowed into the crisp, clean air. And now they could see that there was the dust was rising up, it was billowing into the crisp and clean air. As hills started to push up once more from the rocky wilderness, we passed solitary Drogba tending their flocks. Now, again, they had left the plain areas. Again, they could see the rocky wildernesses, they could see the hills. And then they passed the solitary Drogbas, the alone shepherds, and they were tending their flocks, they were tending their sheep. Sometimes men, sometimes women, these well wrapped figures would pause and stare at our car, occasionally waving as we passed. Now, when they were passing those Drogba shepherds, sometimes they would see that men and sometimes women, they would pause, they would stop, and then they would start looking at their car, and then they would start waving them while they would pass them. When the track took us close to their animals, the sheep would take evasive action, veering away from the speeding vehicle. Veering means they would change their direction. And now, when they would be close to those animals, the sheep would they would change their direction, and they would change their direction from their speeding vehicles. We passed nomads, dark tents pitched in splendid isolation. And now the author and his companions, they passed nomads, dark tents, and they were pitched in the splendid isolation in the alone areas. They were placed there, usually with a huge black dog, a Tibetan Mastiff standing guard. And also, they had a guard in the form of a huge black dog who was a Tibetan Mastiff, a very huge dog. These beasts would cock their great big heads when they became aware of our approach and fixed us in their sights. As soon as these animals, these huge black dogs, would see the author and his companions, they would become aware of their approach and they would start looking at them continuously. As we continued to draw closer, they would explode into action, speeding directly towards us like a bullet from a gun and nearly as fast. And as soon as they would be near to the animals, to the dogs, they would come into their action and they would start speeding towards them. They would run towards them in the same speed as a bullet comes out of the gun. These shaggy monsters, blacker than the darkest night, usually wore bright red collars and barked furiously with massive jaws. These shaggy monsters means here the huge black dogs of Tibetan Mastiffs. These Tibetan Mastiffs dogs, they were looking just like a monsters. They were shabby monsters. They were bushy or hairy monsters. They were looking very black, blacker than the darkest night. And they would be wearing bright red collars and they would start barking furiously with massive jaws. They were completely fearless of our vehicle, shooting straight into our path, causing Zayton to brake and swerve. Now, they were completely fearless. They were fearless of even vehicles of the author. They would shoot straight into their path, and then the Zayton had to brake his car and he had to change his direction. Now, this line says that these mastiff dogs were very huge, they were alert, and they were vigilant, they were bold and fearless. The dog would make chase for 100 meters or so before easing off, having seen us off the property. And then the dog would start chasing the author and his companions, and they would chase for 100 meters or so until they see that they had left their property. When they would see that the author and his companions or even anyone else had left their property, they would ease off, they would stop running after them. It wasn't difficult to understand why ferocious Tibetan mastiffs became popular in China's imperial courts as hunting dogs, brought along the Silk Road in ancient times as tribute from Tibet. Now, it was understood that why these ferocious Tibetan mastiffs were brought to the royal courts of China, and they were called as the hunting dogs, and they were brought along the Silk Road in ancient times as tribute. By now, we could see snow capped mountains gathering on the horizon. And now they had left that area, they had left the nomads' tents, and now they could see the snow covered mountains. We entered a valley where the river was white and mostly clogged with ice, brilliant white and glinting in the sunshine. Now they entered a valley where they could see the river. The river was very wide, it was filled with ice, and also it was shining in the sunshine. It was brilliant white and glinting, it was shining. The trail hugged its bank, twisting with the meanders as we gradually gained height and the valley sides closed in. Now the track was along its bank, along the bank of the river, and also taking zigzag movements. And then the author and his companions gained height, they were climbing to the heights, and the valley was closing towards them. Okay, students, now they are on the way as the author is going for the Kora. In the next class, we will read how he fulfills his ambition and becomes successful in completing the Kora. Okay, students, goodbye and have a nice day.